master degree. So I want to start the research. What do you think about Khamriya poetry? But actually, she had something else in mind. She said, what about literature who deal with sex instead? But I think, yeah, that may be fun as well. So I accepted, and it was fun. During the thesis of my master degree, she proposed me to translate into Italian Al-Jahiz Mufakharat al-Jawari wal-Ghilman. So it was not the easiest things to do for somebody who's still learning Arabic, translating Al-Jahiz. But of course, she helped me in that. So I was translating Al-Jahiz, and it was hard because I basically had to look up in the vocabulary every single word, so it was very hard. But then I was, at the end of the essay, of Al-Jahiz essay, there is a part of a numbered list of Licencia's anecdotes. I don't know if any of you has ever translated into another language a joke, because this translation passes through a phase in which you're still understanding the joke, and then when you get it, and it's very fun. So I just wanted to show you one of the anecdotes of Al-Jahiz that I translated into Italian and now into English, just to make you see what we're dealing with. So, oops, I can see it. Okay. A man saw a beautiful and wealthy woman in whose house there was a deformed and little man who gave orders. He thought he was a servant, so he asked her, the woman, for explanation because he didn't understand why a servant was giving orders. She told him that he was her husband. So he said, God be blessed. You're such a beautiful woman. Why did you marry someone like him? But she replied, if she showed you what he had dressed to me, he would be greater at your eyes. Then she uncovered a leg on which there was brushes and said, this is when he missed the target. Imagine when they score. So this was one of the Al-Jahiz anecdotes, and not even the worst one. There are many anecdotes that are very, very problematic today. And I remember was at the library on my own translating, and I was enjoying it, and I was laughing. And I think that when you're alone studying and you're having fun, you're enjoying it, you're in the right track. And I think that doing something fun is important, especially if you're doing research, because research sometimes it's hard. Research is frustration a lot of time. So having things that made me laugh really helped me a lot. And the great things about adab literature, so Arabic literature adab, is that it's fun for definition. Because Arabic literature adab is characterized by alternation of jid and hazl, so earnest and jest, and that's what Al-Jahiz taught me. When reading Al-Jahiz, studying Al-Jahiz gives a lot of attention on the reader, or on the reader, on his audience. He say that having the fun, the humorous element, it's important, it's fundamental to make somebody else understand what you say. Even the most important things cannot be carried on too long without something that keep the attention of your audience up. And I really think I learned a lot for Al-Jahiz, and I really think he can still learn. We all can learn a lot from him. We should read Al-Jahiz more. So from the thesis of my master degree, I translated Al-Jahiz text, Mufakharat al-Jawari wal-Ghilman, and I compared it with one of the tale of Layla wa Layla of the Black edition, so 1835 was published, that dealt with exactly the same issues. So it's another Mufakhara that compared the Beardless boy and maidens as objects of love. At the time, I still didn't know it, but this tale is actually very ancient. It's from a manuscript that traces back to the 12th century. But in the time, I still didn't know it. I just found it I just know that it was in Layla wa Layla edition Bulak. So this is the basis of my research project also today, because I was fascinated not by the analogies that I found in two texts, but the differences. So I wanted to really briefly tell you what I found out. So basically, while Al-Jahi's text, Al-Jahi's Mufakhara, there were two men discussing this theme. There was two Ashab, so Sahib al-Jawari, the one who supported who prefer maidens, and Sahib al-Jawad al-Ghilman, so the one who prefer young boys. The two men are equal. They have no name. They're just two peers that discuss the topic. In the other tale, there is a man and a wise woman. I mean, not only the gender is different, not only is a man and a woman, but the woman is also defending her gender. So she is defending the fact that men should prefer women. But also there is another difference here, and that the woman is a wise woman. She's described as a very smart, very brilliant, that men used to interrogate about things. So the men go to her to ask things. So there is a hierarchy in this mufakhara, in this debate. And this, of course, led to another difference in that in Al-Jahiz, no one wins the debate. One in the tale, the woman wins the debate. And it's actually heteroerotic love that wins. But there is another difference that it's even more interesting, is that why in the Al-Jahiz mufakhara, the men who prefer young boys praises only Beardless boy. The men who prefer young boys in Alf Layla wa Layla's tale also praises bearded boys. So I wanted to show you a little things that I find very interesting. I translated it into Italian for the thesis of my master's degree. I wouldn't dare to translate an Arabic poetry into English. That is not my mother tongue. So basically, in the first line, it say Abu Nuwas, that is the libertine said, and I want to focus on the second line. It say Ya tahwi al-ghidar. So I want to focus on this word. So all people who love idar, so you enjoy a pleasure that is not present in the other word. Idar is a specific word that means the first beard of an adolescent. So of course it's a first beard, but it's not anymore a beardless boy. It's a bearded boy. It's a boy that is growing up. It's different. It's not an amrad. Amrad is the Arabic term for beardless. And also another poetry that, again, I'm not going to translate it. I'm just going to say that here, the slanders are saying on his cheek, fi khaddi arida. So this term arida. In his cheek is appearing something. Again, this word means something like a plant that is starting to appear, arida. It refers, of course, to the beard, to the first beard of the young boy, and the fact that it's something that like a plant, like something green that is appearing, is because in this kind of metaphor, it's always often use the color green to refer to the beard, and it's also here after he uses ikhdarra. So it's greening on his upper lips. So something is greening, something is appearing of his upper lips, and he also say. Yes, those other words that refer to this. And in his poetry, the man it's praising the beauty of a bearded boy, on a boy that is already got some beard, that is not anymore a young boy. So it's becoming a man basically. And so that was caught my attention. That's why it became the basis for my research PhD project. Is that how this discourse changes, how a beardless boy became a bearded boy. How does it change? What are the characteristics of the discourse? And so that's why I chose to analyze different texts to see how this discourse developed. So let's arrive in the second part. So Arabic erotic literature. So I'm not going to deal now on beardless boy, because I think it's very important that we first analyze what do we mean with erotic literature. Because when I started my project, one of the main difficulties that I faces is defining erotic or erotological and giving a definition to this kind of literature. During last week, Letizia and Isfan, we were talking about the difference between, like, the fact that there is no clear cut between historiography and literature sometimes. And you, Isfan, say something very smart. You say that we are very keen on categorizing things, but sometimes it's messy, it's better, right? So what do we talk about erotic literature? We actually, I love another sentence that I usually will use from a quote from Hamen Attila, is that rigorous definition often seems to be uncomfortably near rigor mortis. It's very tricky to put everything in a box, especially when we talk about Arabic literature from the pre-modern period. So Arabic erotic literature is instead made up by very different genres, subgenres, and also styles. And I think that Arabic erotica, this definition, has more to do with our relationship with erotica and our current relation with sexuality than to the actual purpose, the purpose that many of the texts actually have. So today, instead of giving a definition of erotic literature, I wanted to explain through the differences of this huge production. So the first subcategory that I can explain is that medical and pseudo-medical and pharmacological literature. So, one moment. During the 9th century, a science appeared around this topic, Ilm al-Bah, science of coitus. And a lot of books, so books on the coitus appeared. They were mainly doctors who wrote this book. There was, our first was Al-Kindi, Kitab fil Bah, the Akustain Bluqa, as well as Al-Razi, Ibn Sina also. They all wrote books about sex, coitus. And those texts were focused on health, basically. And the pattern was the same. Like, they started with the intro of why they wrote this book, and then they go on with the description of the human body. And they talk about the mizaj, the temperaments of the body, and how those the lack of balance of those temperaments may lead to problems. And that's the purpose of those books, is that they're focused on curing some problems related to sexuality, some sexual dysfunction. And they talk also about the regime that every kind of temperament should have, regime of sexuality, of course. And they provide some remedies, so some recipes and so on, some remedies to this problem. Of course, this kind of literature, it's very, very connected to Greek medicine. In this text, there's always quoted Galen and Hippocrates. They're all the time quoted, both for the humor theory, but also for the remedies. So I wanted to show another text that is very similar to it and is pharmacological. And there is Tusi Kitab al-Abab al-Bahiyya wal-Tarakibat Sultaniya, the book of sexual stimulants and the Sultan's potion. I want to read you a little piece from the English translation made by Daniel D. Newman. And why I read this little piece, I want you to look at this map. That is, there is the maps of Newman about the temperaments, because he described every temperament and how they should engage in coitus according to their temperaments. That's the sexual regime I'm talking about. So I'm gonna read this few lines. Those with brown or wheat-colored skin, with either strong or lean flesh, white veins and black hair, who are temperate and clean, with bluish black eyes, thick eyebrows, and powerful testicles, are endowed with a hot and dry temperament. Those who fell into these categories are eager for sexual intercourse, and are not spoiled by it. Those who have a yellow color, red face, white skin, and big belly have a cold and moist temperament. Those with a moist temperament decide to engage in coitus, but are not sufficiently strong to do it so. And he continues, explaining why and how every kind of temperament should have sex or not. And also he said in which season is better and in which is better not to, and so on. But another interesting thing of this book is that for whom he wrote this book. At the beginning of the book, he said, the Caliph of Kazan had a beautiful son whose body was struck by paralysis, which incapacitated the movement of the lips. The Caliph asked the Sheikh, and he's talking about himself, to write this book. So basically, this is interesting. So the Caliph has a son who suffers of paraplegia, and of course, it's a problem for a king not to have an heir. So this is very because a child who suffers paraplegia cannot engage in coitus and then cannot have heir after. So it was that's why medicine and erotological literature was very important, because it was a whole science appeared on the fact of on the problems that may affect the health, because sexuality was perceived as an important topic. Then in the text, he provides some remedies that I wanted to read one of those, but I'm gonna leave it for the Q&A if anybody is interested, because they are interesting. Another subcategories of sexual literature is different genres of adab, like poetry or the mufakhara, but I'm not going to talk more about mufakhara. I already talked about this. But what I wanted to say about these subcategories is that I've gone back and forth considering Jahi's mufakhara an erotic or text or not, because I really don't think that the main purpose was to be erotic. The more I read Jahi's text, the more I get convinced to it. But still, on the other hand, it gives us a lot of information. It provides us names of position, sexual position, and so on and so forth. So, but in this kind of text, sexuality is not the only aim of sexuality and sexual themes. It's a literary tool. It's not aimed to teach some things to someone. It's sexuality here, eroticism, it's a literary tool. So I'm just not going to talk about anymore, because I'm going to talk about this mufakhara later. So another subcategories are the compendiums. The compendiums are a collection of all the knowledge on eroticism. So in the same book, you can find issues about health, religious issue, linguistic issues, and also funny anecdotes and poetry. So those are the compendium. And I don't have time to explain a lot, but I want to focus on the linguistic aspect of this text, because it's kind of, it's not that, it's interesting. So one of the compendium is the famous Kitab Jawami al-Latha, so by Al-Khatib, 10th century, the Encyclopedia of Pleasure. This is the table of content that I took from Al-Munajid al-Hayat al-Jinsiyya al-Arab, and I want to focus on chapter 4, that is Asma al-Dhakar wa al-Farj, so the name of the penis and the vagina. So there is a whole chapter about this topic, and it's not the only book. Also in الروضة الأطير في نسخة الخطير by Naftawi, so Scented Gardens in the excursion of Desire, there are whole chapter on the names, one of the names of the penis and one of the name of the vagina. I leave the Italian text because I like it. So, but for example, there is Zakar, the most usual one, but it's also Ayer, that is should be the dysphemism. And also several euphemisms like al-hamama, that means the pigeon, al-kharraj, the one who, and so on and so forth, let's say. And there is another whole chapter for the name of the vagina as well. There is the al-farj, the classic one, the dysphemism, al-khus, and some euphemisms, so al-hasan, the beauty, and al-bashir, the ugly. And there are several names of that. And again, in another text, السيوطي غاية الإحسان في خلق الإنسان, there is that is not I don't think it's a sexual book, erotic book, but it's about all the names of the part of the bodies. Again, there is a chapter on the Dhakar and Mahawlahu, so the surroundings, and the chapter of the names of the vagina. And it starts here saying that there are 100 of names for the penis, and it actually lists 100 of names. There are a lot. So, and there are also a lot of euphemism that today we can think they're funny, fun, and can seems like the humorous part of the text, but it's actually not. This part, all the names of the body, was perceived like something very important for us beauty as well. It starts with this text with this introduction. I'm sorry, I should have translated it, but I'm just saying, he just say that in the past it was perceived as an important issue, but today is people don't know, they just know the famous names, the names that women and children knows. Also that only Nisa or Atfal. So for him, knowing all the name, also the part of the body, was perceived important. So this is one other of the aim of sexual literature is educate the reader. So just before going into the main topic, I want to talk about another little difference that I identified in the erotic literature, and it's the approach they have to sex, sexuality, eroticism, and so on. So the first text is Atifashi, is one of the most famous erotic treatises, and نسخة الأباب فيما لا يوجد في الكتاب. So the lights of hers in things that cannot be found in any books. This book deal with all illicit practice. It talks about prostitution, it talks about adultery, it talks about sodomy. So all things that are perceived like illicit relationship, sexual relationship. And there are As-Suyuti, this other book, again As-Suyuti, Kitab Rashfa Zulal Min As-Sihar Al-Halal. This text only deal with lawful intercourse, so sex relationship between a male and a female and a woman. But the interesting thing about this topic, this book talks about a group of men. There is a sort of frame tale, a group of men that decided to get married. And so they spend the first night with the woman and then come back with the group. They come back together to tell each other how the wedding night went. And that's it. It's interesting because it's basically 20, I don't remember which one, 21 or 23 story of the first wedding night. And it's of course, there are also stories, anecdotes. So it's also fun anecdotes, but it's very it's very also very kind of pornographic. It's telling a lot of stories about the first sexual intercourse with their new wife. So while Artifasci's text was more like talking about illicit practices to amuse the reader, so it's Mujun literature. It seems to me the As-Suyuti's purpose is not much to amuse the reader, but to arouse the reader, because it's the 21 stories about how their first wedding night went is kind of pornographic. And also pornography that today we consider like disgusting and so on was actually used in the premodern period with medical purpose. So also pornography was against sexual dysfunction, impotence. It was important. So I finished with talking about erotic literature in general, but why I spent all this time talking about this? Because different texts have different purposes, as I showed you. And we should keep that in mind because those differences in their approach, of course, have to affect the way in which the discourse on sexuality changes. And also it affects the differences in which the young boys and other things are described. So we finally arrived to the third part, so the beardless boy in this erotic Arabic literature. And yes, I wanted to bring more texts, but I'm actually, as I told you, I'm just finished my first year of my PhD. My research is in a very early stage. Many of the texts I found, I'm still working on them and still translating them. So I actually choose just 3 texts that may explain you some of the differences in this discourse. So the first one is, of course, the one I already talked about, and is مفاخرة الجواري والغلمان. So briefly, these texts deal with the comparison with the maidens and youths as objects of love. So, and this text has many things in common with Greek literature. First, the topic. So, of course, I was already pointed out this literary dispute between the same topic is a topos in Greek literature. Let's think about also the Plato Symposium. And also the genre of the mufakhara. The two, also this genre is something that was not common in Arabic literature before the Abbasid period. So also the literary dispute is very similar to the Greek text. But also the peculiarity of the homoeroticism with young boy, because it appeared for this text that at least for the Sahib al-Jawari, so the Sahib al-Gilman, I mean, so the supporter of the young boys, the homoeroticism with the young boy have some peculiarity. They never describe the man. It's like Shamil Sheikh described, there are 3 genders. There is male, female, and then the young boy. The young boy is not yet a man. So penetrate a young boy is not that shameful as penetrate another young adult man. So this is interesting that while the supporter of the young boys thinks in this difference, the counterpart seems not to share this thing. So when the counterpart always talk about the counterpart as a libertine, as a luti, a sodomite, it does not share this difference. But yes, there are some analogies with the Greek text, but also some differences. And the main difference is that this dialogue is embedded perfectly in Arabic culture, because he uses the 2 main sources of Arabic culture and literature. For structuring their arguments, he used the poetry and the Quran. So what do we learn from poetry? What do we learn from this discourse, from this text? I want to read you a little piece of this dialogue. So, said he who preferred maidens, no one has ever heard of a lover who died for love for a young boy. Instead, we can count a multitude of poets, especially Islamic, including Jamil ibn Ammar, who died of love for Buthaina. Buthayr was killed by his love for Azza, as well as Urwa, killed by his love for Afra, and Majnun of Liban Amir, which Leila made go out of his mind. And again, Qasim Darikh was killed by Lubna, and Abid Allah ibn Ajlan by Hind, and Ghamr ibn Diyar died for Jumal. And as we have mentioned, are just a few. The one we have not mentioned cannot even be counted. So why I consider this important? Because he provides some of the poetry, some of the poems of those who are the most famous cabal of the romantic cabals. Because he actually achieved to demonstrate that before Abbasid period there is no mention of a young boy in poetry. Because all the poems that his counterpart provide are poetry of Mujun from the Abbasid period. So that's the reason why many people try to argue that the love for young boy as a literary motive, of course, it was imported from some other cultures. So while in the poetry this theme seems to be completely absent, in the Quran is not. So what does he say in the Quran? That's what the Sahib al-Hilman states. So it brings some verse of the Quran that actually name the young boy. And is Surah Thawr, Surah 52. They have youth, Hilman, who go around them like worded peers. And it also says Surah Al-Waqi'ah, immortal boys, called Wildan, go about them with cups and ears. So apparently they are mentioned in the Quran. And of course, its controversial response with all the verses on the Qawm of Lot and so on, of course. But so what do we know about this discourse? How do appear this discourse here in the Mufakhara? So first, it appeared to be new in literature. Two, the young boy seems to be a slave, because the debate is not about, it's about if it's better to buy a male slave or a female slave. So, and of course, it's also only about not lawful sex. Al-Jahiz said that at the beginning. It's about zina versus liwat. So it's about adultery and versus sodomy. It's not about marriage against homoeroticism. So is it the young boy here is a slave? In fact, one of the argumentation that he provided is better to buy a young boy because he doesn't menstruate and doesn't get pregnant. So this is we are talking about. The man is just an instrument, is really an object of love. And the third is that this discourse appear in comparison with the female. So the young boy is compared to another slave, the female slave. Yeah. Then that is the second text I choose. That is the one I already talked about, Nusrat al-Abab fima la yujad fil kitab. And in this text, I already say it. It is also only talks about unlawful sex, unlawful practices, so the adultery, sodomy, prostitution. So, and the aim is to amuse. It's not about giving true information about sex. It's just to amuse and make people laugh. So, where the young boy appear in this text? So, the first chapter is chapter 7. And it's on al-murd al-mu'ajirin, so it's basically male prostitute, and and it's also it's about anecdotes and poetry about male prostitute. And then another chapter that caught my attention more, it's the chapter 9. It's on the practice of adab or dabib. What is dabib? So this is art. Dabib is the anal penetration of an unconsensual and sleeping victim. I don't know if this practice have ever been used for a female victim, but in this chapter is made clear that it's only for male victims, for young boys victims. And again, this is yeah. But what does it say in this chapter? So. The author says that if you want to do the dabib, you have to provide yourself with 10 things. And this is the list. So a hook with a long wire, a rolled paper, 3 stones, soft soil, a little water skin, scissors, a quiver with gold in it, a fig dirham, and a raw egg. Each on this object, it leads to a trick to do dabib. So I'm gonna talk just about a few of them, like the 3 stones, for example, is if you're not sure if other people are sleeping in the room and you want to make sure, you throw a little stones to see if there is some movement. So you can make sure you can do the practice if everybody, the dabib, if everybody is sleeping in it. Or for example, a fur. This is basically, it says that sometimes when you're practicing dabib, the victim may not be happy about it, and so it tends to take you from your hair, from your head, and take it and trying to hurt you. But if you put a fur in your head, it's just gonna take the fur and you're gonna block him again, and you can continue with your practice. And also, like a fur dirham, he said sometimes the victim can not be happy, but if you put a fig dirham, they may accept it. And when they understand, they get that it's fake, you're already gone. And that's the trick for the beep. But yeah, but what I already say it. It's actually we don't know if they actually did. I don't think this is a real list of things to do. It's more a literary motive. It's something that apparently had to make people laugh. I think today will just appear cruel and awful to a modern contemporary audience. It's not that fun anymore. But anyway, what I thought is that who is the young boy, the beardless boy here? Because in the previous text we saw that he was a male slave, but if you need to force him, if you need those tricks to love, to have a sexual relationship with a young man, it's not anymore your slave. So here it's represented as a prostitute. So it do it for money or anybody else. So if you have to force him to do it, who isn't the young boy? Can even be a free young boy? Who is it? So that's the question that this chapter raises to me. And so how does appear in this text the discourse on young boys? So first, it's not new anymore. It's not a new discourse anymore, first of all. Second, is not anymore a slave. It's not about choosing to buy a male slave or female slave. It's somebody else, and it's not that clear who is it. And third, is alone. It's not anymore it's not more anymore compared with something else. It's already it's a theme on its own. The last text I want to show you is this text. The one I already talked about this before, because I really didn't expect to find anything in a text dealing just with lawful sex. I really didn't expect to find anything. But as I said, in the frame tale of this chapter, there is a group of men talking about wanting to get married. And there is the leader of this book who made a speech. And in this speech says first how to be a good Muslim, so to fast, to do zakat, and so on, and says to get married, because the marriage is the first contract, the first project in every religion. And he said he discouraged people to commit adultery and sodomy. But he just mentioned one adultery, because then he goes on to discouraging from homoeroticism, so to discourage to go with other men. So in the part in prose, he talks he discouraged this practice, saying the word dhukran. So he discouraged the practice between two male. It's not it's very generic terms. But then where does discourse appear? In the poetry. So here I want to focus on this term murdu, so the beardless boy. In this poetry here is saying just the lowest or go with the beardless boy, while the beauty is women are more beautiful, and it says that adubr, so the bottom is just place for feces and troubles and so on. So it's discouraging to go to beardless boy because, and it's encouraging to go to woman. And again, this Kalalacher. So in these other poems, I'm sorry, I can't see it. Okay. Sorry. So again, it's discouraging from the practice of liwat, so sodomy in general, but also and khal al-murda, so leave alone the beardless boys. And again, in the second part is and instead go with the woman, then enjoy their kisses. And again, here at the end, it's actually saying a man of rajul, so man of the word, does not mean need another man. So here it's actually saying man again. It's not precisely about the young beardless boy. But I actually find it coherent with the discourse, because as I said at the beginning, in the Al-Jahis Mufakhara, why the one who supported the Beardless boy saw a difference in homoeroticism within a man and a homoerotic practice within a young boy. The counterpart didn't see it. So the counterpart called the one who go with young boys sodomites and libertine anyway. So I think this discourse is coherent because he's actually discouraging from the practice, and he does not see that much of a difference, even though in poetry they are mentioned murda, so the Beardless boy, more than how the men are mentioned. So how does appear this discourse in this text? So that is the last text I wanted to analyze. First, the discourse seems in continuity with the discourse. A second thing is that young boy is not clear who is it. Young boy here is seen as a man. So as he said before, so the crown is forbidden the relationship between two male. It's not important if he's a slave, if he's a prostitute. The young boy is a man. And third, again, is in comparison with a woman, but not with woman in general. In this text, is compared with marriage. So it's like a Beardless boys versus a lawful and intercourse in lawful marriage. So this is where I finished my presentation. I just want to very briefly go into some conclusion. And first is that I really sometimes erotic Arabic literature is treated as a futile kind of literature, so a second-class science. But somehow I hope I managed to show you how Arabic erotica is a field worth of scientific attention. And it's not just a futile kind of literature. It was perceived as important. It was perceived important because eroticism was perceived important. And there are still many texts on erotic texts that are not translated, not edited, not studied, that still need scientific attention. And also there are many texts dealing with homoeroticism that have not been studied or extensively, of course. And the issue on the young boy, especially, according to me, raises some questions about the boundaries, the norms and rules on homoeroticism. For example, if this practice was accepted and was not just a literally motive, was accepted just among the elite, was accepted just with a subordinate, so with a slave or a prostitute, or was more widespread. So who and was really just about young boys, because poetry really deal almost with Beardless boy and almost never with men. So was really more accepted to go with a young boy than with another man or not? So yeah, I just raised this question because as also during my presentation, I didn't give many answers. I just raised this question. That's, yeah, because this is a field of study that I still need to investigate, and I hope in the future I will answer all those questions. And yeah, thank you for your attention. I conclude here. I already think I give you too many information.
Thank you very much indeed, Aurora. That was a fascinating talk. I also understand why everyone, with the exception of Hertian and me, switched off their cameras while listening to it. Now I will stop the recording in a minute, and the floor will be open for questions. And I hope, and I guess there will be many. I have plenty. But before, I'd like to announce our next speaker, and I put it into the chat. Oh, doesn't want to go through in once, so I will cut the message in 2 bits. Just a second. So next week we won't have a majlis because I won't be here and also because there will be an event in the institute itself, so we didn't want to put two things at the same time. But then we will have one the week after, which is by Martin Nixon, Treasure Saved and to be Explored, the Mohammed Taher Library in Timbuktu, Mali. I will advertise it properly. It will be also an amazing talk and actually a film, and you can register to it here already, and then I will launch the proper adverts. So now I'm stopping the recording, and I see Hertian has a question, so we will start with him.